Dental Sports Central will be over our next team prediction of this off season, and it's going to be over the Arkansas Razorbacks, a team that was 3-7 overall in the 2020 season. And this was not a terrible team in the 2020 season. Of course, Arkansas has had kind of a reputation in football for being one of the worst teams in the SEC, but this team last season, I do think, had some good talent, and this team definitely was not as bad as they have been in recent seasons. And this team was 3-7 overall, which 3-7, that is not a very good record, but considering this team was in an SEC conference, which was brutal last season, and overall this team kept it very close with a lot of good teams. This team was not bad last year, and so Arkansas is definitely on the upward trend going into 2021, and whether or not this team will improve next season is what we're going to be going over here today. We're going to get started with Arkansas's final prediction. We'll be looking at your season trends from 2020 to get things started here today. Once again, this team was 3-7 overall, 2-3 in their first 5 games, and then 1-4 in their last 5. So this team was pretty consistent with how they were last season. I mean, once again, this team with a 3-7 record. I mean, they were not a great team last season, but there definitely was improvement on this Arkansas team last season. They beat Mississippi State 21-14. That was a big win. Got a big win over Ole Miss. Ole Miss was a good team last season, 33-21. They lost to Texas A&M, but it was only by 11. That's why it's on the notable games list, 31-42. That was a very good Texas A&M team last season, and this team went to College Station, by the way, and performed extremely well. They beat Tennessee 24-13, also lost to LSU, but in a close matchup, 24-27. So once again, this team could have easily had 5 or 6 wins last season, but of course, the close games just did not go in Arkansas's favor most of the time. But looking at your returning production going into next season, Felipe Franks, of course, transferred in from Florida ahead of the 2020 season, and he played pretty well for Arkansas. He was, I wouldn't say one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC, but he definitely played well enough to give this team a chance at a good season. 2,100 yards, 17 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and also a 69% completion rate. So overall, he actually played very well. Not many people talked about him, but he played very well when he was the quarterback for this team. So KJ Jefferson, he is likely to take over at the quarterback position. There's a little bit of uncertainty there, but I think KJ Jefferson is definitely the most likely quarterback to get the most snaps next season. It's just unfortunate for Arkansas that this team couldn't have had Felipe Franks for another season because, I mean, based off of how he was in 2020, I wouldn't have been surprised if he improved again in 2021 if he was still with this team. But either way, KJ Jefferson, I like him quite a bit. I definitely think he's got potential moving forward, so watch out for him. Treylon Smith, your top running back from last season, is coming back. He had some great stats last season, 860 yards, 6 touchdowns. That's also going to be a huge impact player there. Raheem Boyd, he was your second running back last season. In the backfield, he put up 340 yards and 3 touchdowns. So that'll be a tough loss, though. But, of course, I mean, with Treylon Smith, I think you'll be just fine. Treylon Burks, your receiver last season, your top receiver. Of course, that is Treylon Burks. He put up 890 yards, 7 touchdowns as well last season. So he played pretty well for this team. He's going to be a huge impact player next year. Mike Woods is transferring away. He was your second wide receiver last season, put up 600 yards and 5 touchdowns. And, of course, Davion Warren, your third wideout last season, is also coming back. So, overall, the skill players positions for this team are looking pretty good. I mean, if KJ Jefferson plays well, this team should be just fine. I mean, running back core looks good. Receiving core looks good. I like Davion Warren quite a bit going into next season. I think he's definitely got some great potential. He's got good hands. He plays pretty well overall. As for the defensive line, you lose 2 on there, 1 linebacker, and the offensive line looks pretty good going into next season as well. Starting quarterback is going to have a huge impact on this team next season, and that's the main thing that I will say about this Arkansas team. KJ Jefferson plays well, or whichever quarterback is the primary starter is talented and plays well. I think this team definitely has got potential to be a contender in the SEC next season for sure. However, if things don't go as well there, if there's a little bit of an injury problem at the quarterback position, this team will have a tough time getting above 500 next year. And I think getting to 6 or 7 wins is within probability for this team. But I think Arkansas next season is going to have to really work hard to get up there. Chances of a bowl season in 2021, it's once again going to be pretty competitive, pretty tough, especially in a tough SEC conference. But I'd say chances are actually pretty good for this team. I mean, there's definitely some good factors here that I think this team does have a chance to make it to a bowl game. I think there's definitely a possibility here, but it's going to be, once again, pretty tough as you are in a tough conference. But looking at your schedule now going into next season, of course, you got Rice at home on the 4th. You got Texas then on the 11th. That's going to be a fun matchup there. between Texas and Arkansas. Both teams are pretty even skill-wise, so it'll be a fun one there. Then, of course, you got Georgia Southern the next week. You got Texas A&M to kick off your SEC schedule in a neutral location. Then you got Georgia on the road. You got Ole Miss on the road as well. You got Auburn at home, UAPB. That's also going to be a home game there. Mississippi State's going to be at home, LSU and Alabama on the road, then Missouri at home to finish out the season. So you've got a pretty tough schedule here, and that's the main thing that I'm pretty concerned about for this team. I mean, you got to play Alabama and LSU on the road. You got to play Georgia on the road, Texas A&M, you got to play them, Ole Miss on the road, Auburn. I mean, you got 6 brutal games on your schedule, and that's the main reason why I think this team is going to have a tough time getting up to 6 wins, is you've definitely got one of the toughest schedules in the SEC and possibly in the nation. I mean, I'd argue that just because, I mean, you're playing Texas as well. Texas will be a tough team next season. So you've got a hefty schedule going into next season, and that's going to be something you really got to watch out for is your schedule. It's just going to be tough. Missouri's going to be a tough team. I could see them being pretty good. Mississippi State, that's a winnable one. Ole Miss on the road. I mean, it's just going to be tough for this team. But looking at September here, Rice will be a win. Pretty easy win there. Texas will be a close home. I'm actually giving Arkansas the win against Texas. I think you do beat Texas in that matchup. It's going to be very close. A great matchup in week 2. But I'm going to give Arkansas the win. So you start off the season 2-0. Georgia Southern is also a win. So you're going to be starting off the season 3-0. Looking pretty good heading into your game against Texas A&M. You'll probably be a ranked team. I wouldn't be surprised if you win all 3 of those first games going into that Texas A&M matchup. Texas A&M next season is going to be a great team. I could see them definitely being a contender. I think Texas A&M gets the win in that matchup. So you're going to be 3-1 heading into October, which is a tough month. You got 3 pretty tough matchups there. Georgia on the road. I like Georgia to definitely be a national contender next season. I think the Bulldogs are for sure a team to watch out for in the SEC. Ole Miss on the road. That's also going to be a good team next season. They've got one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. And Auburn, that's also going to be a tough one there. Even though it's at home, I think that's going to be a winnable matchup, but I think Auburn does get the win. UAPB is going to be an easy win. They're not much of a good team at all, so that should be a win. Well, of course, they're not even in the FBS. They're an FCS team, so you should get the win there. 4-4 is going to be a record heading into November, so you got to win 2 of your last 4 to get to a bowl game, which the most likely scenario to do that would be to beat Mississippi State and beat Missouri. Both teams are at home, and that is possible to do. But I think for Arkansas next season, you're going to do it. I've actually got you guys getting up to 6 wins, and I think this is going to be probably the best possible scenario for this team next season is 6 wins. UAPB is a win, and of course Mississippi State, that's going to be a close one, but you get the win. So that puts you at 5 wins heading into your last 3 weeks. LSU on the road. LSU is going to be right back to being a good team next season, so I see them getting the win. Alabama on the road. I mean, it's going to be a loss. And then Missouri, of course. I mean, Missouri next season is also going to be a good team. That's going to be a fight for sure. I think Missouri is definitely going to be a team that should be at the 7 or 8 win mark next season. So that's also going to be a tough one. But I think Arkansas being at home gets them the advantage. And they get the win, and they get to 6 wins after that win against Missouri. So 6-6 is your record prediction for next season. I've got you guys going to a bowl game, which would be huge for this team. I mean, if you can beat Texas, Missouri, Mississippi State, this team is a good team next season. And that could be huge for this team to get to a bowl game. I mean, that would be a huge accomplishment and definitely a step in the right direction. But let me know your thoughts and comments below on this Arkansas team. I'm actually predicting this team to be pretty good in comparison to most experts. But I do appreciate you guys all watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you guys later.